webinar is on the OSD Check Pro version, OSD Check program version 2.0 for Windows 7. It's a, we hope, a live demonstration by Rick Nesser of the software, and if that falls apart, we'll fall back to a PowerPoint presentation, but we hope it's a demonstration. Today's webinar is being recorded, and everyone is in listen-only mode. We'll take questions at the end. If you have a question, I'd invite you to type that in at the Q&A tab at the top of your live meeting frame. And again, we'll take questions at the end. Our presenter today is Rick Nesser, computer programmer at the Center. And Mike, I'll turn it over to Rick.
Well, thank you, Sean. And I'm very happy to be presenting today something that's been really dear to me for many years. I'm going to present to you a demonstration of the OSD Check version 2 program. The OSD Check program itself has a very long history dating back to the early 80s, but I won't go into that unless someone asks. But the basis of the OSD Check is about the official series descriptions. On the screen right now, you should see a portion of the National Soil Survey Handbook, Part 614, and this is where it describes what goes into an official soil series description. And the OSD Check program uses this description to form the basis of what it checks for correctness. And in the Soil Survey Handbook is an example of what a OSD looks like. And further is a greater description about the content of the official series description, showing line by line how it is to be presented. So the OSD Check program really is just to try to make sure that an official series description that is put into our national repository at the Kansas City web farm matches this description. So how do I start the official series description check program? To start it, you should be able to first get it installed. It has been CCE certified, so you should be able to ask your local ITS support to have one downloaded to your local computer, and it is for Windows 7 only. So when I click on the Start button, I do have an icon here that I can click on, or if it does not appear, what I can do is put my cursor in this box, type simply OSD, and the computer will search for it and find the icon for the program. All I have to do is click on it. The OSD Check program version 2 looks very much like the OSD Check version 1.6. If you've ever used that one, you should see some similarities. Because OSDs are documents, they are simply files that are unformatted text, and so what we want to do is look into a directory where my files are located that I want to manage. It starts with a disk drive. The OSD Check program allows you to navigate to a directory that contains my official series description files. Once I click on this download button, I can then choose any of the disk drives that are attached to my local system. The E drive here simply is a thumb drive that I have put into my one of the USB ports I have. Once I select a disk drive, then the directories of the disk drive are exposed, and I can then navigate using this tree structure to the directory that I have my official series description files in. In this case, I already had created a OSDS directory, so I click on it, and then the OSD Check program then exposes all of the text and document files that are in that directory. Of course, it doesn't really know if these are official series description files or not. But I can tell you that they are. These are some files I had downloaded from the internet. This is one of the things about the official series description check program is even though we can navigate to the directory, it doesn't have a way of keeping track of any changes to the directory that you might impose on it while it's open. And what I mean by that is, what if I wanted to go to the official series description website, download a number of files that I was working with? There's no way to do, once I download those from the official series description website and put those into this directory, there's no way for the official series description check program to know that was done, and we have to have a way to actually refresh the list of files. So I'm going to demonstrate how I can do that by going to the official series description website. I can choose to download a number of them. For example, I can choose the official series description by query. And here's a copy of that page. Let's suppose I wanted to download some series from Portland, Oregon, from the MLRA office there, and I wanted to download maybe series from the MLRA number 1. I can then ask the website to process that, and I get 235 official series, each of which have descriptions. So now I can click the FTP to ask for them to be downloaded. I can then save it, my download file. So I'm actually using Microsoft Windows to copy my download files. Which are right here. Then since these are zip files, I'll simply ask zip to extract them to here. All of those 235 files are being extracted in this directory. But if I were to go to the OSD description check program, it would not have any knowledge of these files. If I were to look through here, I wouldn't be able to find those files at all. So I have a button here called Refresh Files List. When I click on that button, it simply refreshes this list that it finds in this directory, the OSD's directory. And if I scroll through here, I could then find them. Now, if I were to close the OSD Check program right now, it would not necessarily remember that I was in this directory. So I included a button called Remember Directory, so that if I want to close down my OSD Check program and come back tomorrow and reopen it, I want to be able to find this same directory. By clicking this button, OSD Check will write out a file so that it will remember this directory, so that tomorrow I can come back and open up the OSD Check program, and it will find this directory for me without me having to navigate to it. So it's like a shortcut. Now, what if I wanted to download some information about these series without having to use the OSD or SC websites? I have another window here that I can use to download the OSDs from the repository without having to go to the OSD website. It looks very much like the website in that I can put a series of names that I list. I'll just put a few in here, like maybe I want to look up the series Flacco and Gordo. I have a choice of either downloading the information from the NASA's database about those series, or I can actually download the official series descriptions if they exist. By clicking the Download Soil Series Data button, the OSD Check program is actually querying the NASA's database and getting from the soil series object data it finds about those particular series. And the messages down here below simply are the characteristics of that soil series that it finds in the database. If I choose, I can then download those OSDs by clicking on the Download OSDS button. Right now, what it's doing is going to the website, and it's actually downloading those series right into the directory that I already have open. So if I look down here in the messages, it tells me that it had success in downloading the OSD for those series into this directory. So if I go through my list, I'll find that Flacco is in here. Right there. And if I want to, I can go ahead and manage it by updating it or even just checking to see if it's still good. So how do I check the official series descriptions? Similar to the old version, 1.6, what you need to do is highlight or select the official series description files you want to check. Now, if you only wanted to do one, then I have provided a shortcut. All you have to do is simply double-click on the name, and it will begin a check. So let's try this one, the Adena Soil Series. I'll double-click on that file, and what we'll do is it will check the content of that file to see if it matches the official series description in the Soil Survey Handbook. And it opens up an extra window to tell me if there were any errors or warnings about that series, about the OSD. And in this case, it didn't find it. But it does open up the document down below so that you can manage it. If you wanted to update it, you can right here in this window. It is a simple text window. Or if I wanted to check a number of them, I can then go ahead and using Windows selection, select any number of these files I want to. I click on one, and I can click on a series of them by holding down my Shift key and clicking on another one, and that allows me to select these four files right in a row. If I have a series like that, all I have to do is click on the Begin button, and it will check the first one that I started with. There were no errors with that. If I check Next, then it will go on to the next series in my list. Now that one, it says it found some errors, and it found 12 of them. So that means this series should be checked over by the soil data quality specialist to find out what those errors are and update this official series description. The errors in the description are colored in red, and any warnings where it's not a serious error would be in blue. My interpretation of this error is that the person who typed this in used capital letters for SAR followed by a colon. This is a special indication from the Fish and Series Description Check. It's looking for the regular data to not be lowercase, to not be all uppercase letters followed by a colon. And so it's really confusing the checking program. And my solution would be to change that. And it looks like that person who wrote this did it quite a bit. So what I would do is then exit this check, scroll down to find where those are, right here. And I would simply change those. I can change these to lowercase letters. And then have it check again. By clicking on the check button, I'm having the program simply recheck what I've got in my content here. And now notice I still have errors, but this one that I updated does not have an error associated with it. So it would be okay. I'm not going to spend the time fixing all that up because, well, that's not what I'm doing here. Now, one of the features that I've added to the new version of OSD Check is to actually check the content of a Microsoft Word document. In the old days, the text file had to be pure text, no formatting at all. And that was a problem because if you wanted to use Word for doing spell checking, then you had to save that as regular text before you could even pass it through the OSD Check program. I've made it so you don't have to do that anymore. You could actually use Microsoft Word files, do spell checking, and update it as you wish, and then you can pass it through the OSD Check program. This particular file, adida.docx, is an actual Word file. And so I can just simply click on it. And what OSD Check will do is look at the text and simply check the text. It ignores any of the formatting that might be in it. The problem is OSD Check, if you try to update the document by upgrading the text, it doesn't save it back with the Microsoft Word format. So that's one thing I really could not do. Now, one of the features that I wanted to include here was the ability to check an old file, like this adida.txt file, and maybe one that you've updated. This is a file, the adida underlying updated.txt file is one that I had taken and updated myself. And if you want to keep track of changes, you can do that through Microsoft Word. But you can also do it this way and use a program called WinDiff, which will be able to compare two files that are similar and tell you where the differences are. WinDiff is not something I wrote. It is a Windows product that it really mimics the same Unix diff program. Some of you might have used Unix a long time ago and probably used the diff program. Well, WinDiff does exactly the same thing as that one does. What you do is you highlight two files you want to compare. Click on the Compare Two Files button. It will open WinDiff and show you the two files and their differences. In this case, it shows you on the left side of this the adida.txt file, and on the right side is the adida updated file. In red, it shows you what's in the adida text. And on the right, or the yellow side, it shows you what is different in the ADINA updated file. And I threw this in there because I thought if you really wanted to go back and look at the history of files as you've updated them and you've kept them, then you can go back and see where the differences are fairly quickly. The only thing I haven't demonstrated is this Save button. The Save button is if I bring in a no-set description, and I really do make changes to it. For example, maybe I want this to be a superactive reaction. Then I can go ahead and click the Save button, and it will actually save my changes to the disk drive. But before I save it, I'm going to go ahead and check it to make sure that's a valid taxonomy. Which is one thing I do want to mention, is the taxonomic class is being checked by going to the NASA's website and submitting this taxonomy for checking at NASA's. If this did not match the criteria for a valid taxonomic classification, then we'd get an error message. And that's one thing that has changed from the older version to this newer version. The older version, you had to download a file of taxonomic terms and it would check it locally. But this program is actually using the internet to have the classification checked at the NASA's website. That way the classification will always be up to date with the taxonomic terms. That's really all I have to demonstrate for the OSD Check program. I'd like to open it up for questions or comments.
All right, is there anyone here in the room with me that has a question for Rick before I go to the online questions? All right, we'll see, and then we'll go to the first online question. And it is, on the last example, it looked like the person used an O instead of a 0. Does OSD check that kind of thing?
That's a very good question. The OSD check only does a minimum of checking. For example, it checks for the classification, the taxonomic classification to make sure it's valid. It checks the paragraph headings to make sure they're valid. It checks the, I'm going to scroll down here on my window, and it does check to make sure that each of the horizons that are described start with a, well, what it does look for the depths here. Unfortunately, it doesn't really know whether this depth is 0 to 3 inches. If somebody had put an O instead of a 0, it doesn't know that that should be a 0. It thinks that 3 inches is a valid depth, so it doesn't have that kind of intelligence. Some of the other things that it must check for, it will look at the Munsell color code within the parentheses, and it will check the color name in front of it to make sure that they match. And it will also check for the pH, the acidity of the soil. It will check to make sure that it's a valid pH that you put. This particular series doesn't have any examples of that. And it will make sure that the name of the acidity that you put in front of the pH matches that. Other than that, it doesn't really do much more than that.
All right. Another question about WinDiff. Does that come as part of the OSD Check program, or does that need to be loaded by IT?
That's another very good question. It is loaded with the OSD Check program. It is not normally loaded with Windows 7. So you do not have to ask for it specially to be loaded. Just have them load the OSD Check program itself, and it's bundled in with it.
All right, more online questions that are coming in. If you are not connected to the internet, will OSD Check 2.0 be able to access all the online items?
No. It does require the internet in order to be able to download series. It has to be online to check the taxonomy. But that does not mean that you can't run OSD Check. It will do the check. It just will tell you that since it's not connected, it won't be fully checked. I'll put it that way.
Another question, how long does it take for edits to be uploaded to the internet, the OSD site?
I'm not sure if you're asking me about, because the OSD Check tool is not being used by the soil data quality specialists to upload series into the repository. They have a special web tool called the SCOSD maintenance tool they use to actually submit the official series description into the repository. And when they use that tool, that is instantaneous. As soon as it's uploaded into the repository, it is available. Now, the OSD Check tool that I'm demonstrating is mainly going to be used by the soil scientists in the soil survey offices who are preparing proposed series or changes that they're sending to the soil data quality specialists. Now, once I have these series or these OSD documents ready to send to the soil data quality specialists, how do I get them to them? Well, the best way would be through email. And how soon they get them? Well, it depends on how fast your network is. Does that answer your question?
And a somewhat related question is, can you access the historical notes for OSDs that the soil data quality specialists can enter into the soil classification OSD maintenance tool?
Well, actually, yes. If you go to the download OSDs and series data, and I put in a series name, I'll go back to Flacco, because I like to be thin. I click on the download soil series data, and it did access the internet, and it went to the NASA's database to download this. You'll notice that there is this place here for the OSD history notes. That is the same column of data in the NASA's database that the soil data quality specialist has the right to fill in. On the SCOSD maintenance tool, there is a text field where they can put in history notes. I have to admit that I can't tell you a particular series that might have that in for me to demonstrate. Let's try the Dina one. No, I'm not sure. That one might have it. Nope, that one doesn't. If they had entered one in, it would show up.
All right, here's another combination comment and question. There's a fragmented sentence in the first paragraph, but there is no error showing. It appears you would need to validate this with spell check in Word. Is there a way to check this with the tool?
No. This tool does not do any spell checking whatsoever unless it's related to the Munsell color names, related to the Munsell color code, or with the acidity. It does do that. But it does not check grammar or anything like that. I felt the Microsoft Word is a better tool for that. It's perfect. And you have the right to, in MS Word, to create a dictionary of your own taxonomic terms and words that you can use for spell checking. I would prefer you use them.
All right. Another question, will the OSD check be able to check horizon designation to ensure it is a valid designation?
That's a very good question. I have never been asked to do that. It does not do that right now. If someone said I want that to happen, I can make it happen, but I've never been asked to do that.
I think it'd be a good thing to add. Another question, is there a way to archive the old OSD after a change has been made? This way we can keep track of historical changes.
Well, yes, that is up to you. For example, I've already shown you in this case, I have the original text in this adina.txt file, and I made an update in this one. And I can make up my own scheme of how I keep track of my changes, and I can use different directories if I want to. If I want to keep like an original directory, and I can keep an updated directory or working directory where I keep my updated files that I haven't sent yet. The scheme is really dependent upon your organization.
Another question, can OSD Check 2.0 and 1.6 coexist on the same system?
Yes, but I would prefer you not use 1.6. 1.6 was, I'm really shocked it even runs on Windows 7, but I've heard that it does. You should not be using that one because it does not have the ability to get the newest taxonomic terms. Besides, the version 2 has exactly the same checks that 1.6 had in it, so there's no reason to keep it.
All right, here's a regional question for you. So there's so many different formats for OSDs depending on what regional office location you're associated with. Does the OSD check for the correct format?
I'm really not sure what they mean by that. I didn't know that different regions have different formats. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one format, which is described in the National Soil Survey Handbook. If you want to contact me about this later after the demonstration is over with, please do. You can contact me either through Microsoft Link, because I will always have that online and open, or you can send me an email message, and I'll be glad to respond to that. And I would love to have examples of what you mean by the different formats.
Here's one follow-up on your example with the SAR question. And it says, in this example, the OSD check program flagged SAR as an error because of all capital letters. But in the line just above SAR, it did not flag EC as an error. Why the difference if they're both in caps? I'm wondering if the difference wasn't because they're both in caps, it's because SAR had a colon after it instead of EC not having a colon after it.
Yes, Sean is correct. It has to do with the fact that it's looking for paragraph headings that are all capital letters followed by a colon. So if you took off the colon after SAR, it would have been fine.
So a combination comment and question. Thanks so much, Rick, for updating OSD Check and making it available to the field soil scientists. Would there be a way for National Soil Survey Center to request that OSD Check be installed on a soil scientist computer? So I think you said it was certified, but how do people get that if they don't have it?
Well, the way to get it is to talk with your local ITS people. You could, depending upon how your ITS support handles requests, some of them might require you to fill out what's called a remedy ticket. A remedy ticket is a formal way for you to request software to be installed, and you just simply click on that. Let me go see if I can pull up. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but if I pull up my TSD icon here, I can bring up a link to the remedy ticket, and I can fill it out to ask for it to be loaded. But some ITS support are very informal, and you can just send them an email and say, I want the OSD Check version 2 program installed, and they'll just fill out the remedy ticket for you. But anyone can have it installed.
Another question, are there folks out there working on generating OSDs directly from NASS?
Well, I have to tell you that I have a long history with the official series descriptions, and there have been people, soil scientists I've known over the years, that have tried to take official series descriptions and actually reverse engineer them into a database, so that maybe we could actually put some of the properties of the series into a database instead of keeping them as documents. That way, once they're in a database, you can create a document. They have had very little success with that, I can tell you. One particular soil scientist has done the greatest effort, but nevertheless, we still do not have a database of soil series properties. Now, the other part of it, if there was a way to get all of the information that is put into a series description out of NASA's, I would say you could. But there's one element that you have to remember. The official series document is not dry text. It is poetic. It does have a little bit of license to it, and people will put in their description, and you can't imitate that with a computer program. How's that?
And we just did have a follow-up comment that yes, there's at least one person that is engineering those through NASA's. So someone is doing that. Looks like we have another question. Just FYI that some regional offices do keep historical versions of OSDs. They also keep what are called .A files that document the changes made over the years.
Yes, I can talk about the .A files. That goes back to the old Unix days when we used to have our soil data quality specialists were really all located right here in this office under the quality assurance staff. We wanted to have a way to keep our of versioning our documents, but in Unix there was no real easy way to do that. So someone invented a .A file type of file. And the .A file was simply another text file that documented the changes that were made to the .doc file. And then those two files would be transmitted to the National Repository, which at that time was the Iowa State University a long time ago. But the .A files, once we switched to DOS, then we kind of lost the idea of the .A file. We weren't keeping them anymore, and we certainly weren't sending them to the National Repository. That's why when we moved everything into NASA's, we decided to add another column called the Official Series Description History Notes, so that would capture the same content as the .A file. If there was a way to get all of our .A files into NASA's, it would be great, but I've never had anybody ask me to do that.
Some regional offices still keep what was in the .A. If people wanted to access those, they can ask for access to them. Well, Rick, I think that was just a great demonstration of what this program can do, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank the audience for all your questions, and this concludes our webinar.